always at the front of the line. Well, maybe you didn't know, but he looked up the word, you know, Kirk is the Scottish word for church. So he looked up the Italian word, and he would say his name was Giovanni Chiesa.
Yeah, right.
Which is the Italian. Chiesa is the Italian word for church.
Speaking of names, my name is Reba, and he used to call me a Reba Derji. Or Miss Derji.
I have something to say. My husband, Sandy Bayer, passed away 2.5 years ago. He and John looked somewhat alike. If they were together, you knew the difference. But when they were apart, someone would come over to Sandy and say, "Oh, I know who you are. You're John Kirk." And then someone would come over to John Kirk if he were alone and say, "Oh, I know who you are. You're Sandy Bayer." Well, that became a very, very big joke. And we always enjoyed that. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, Sandy was John's twin.
Separated at birth, right?
Yeah, separated at birth. Yeah.
I both admired and feared John. He had a mind and a mouth that were always going. And it was often just better to sort of give up than to try to exchange or banter with him. He was going to win.
I'm sure you must know that, Helen.
Oh, she knows.
I wouldn't admit that he won, though.
Well, this is the case where the wives are friends before they acquire the husbands. That was the case with Helen and me and John and Sid. And Sydney also doesn't give up easily. And there were many a dinner about halfway through that continued very silently after that point, with Helen and I glaring at our respective husbands and nothing, you know what I'm saying. And another thing that we joked about was that there would be a disagreement between the two of them, and then what we would do is they would go, "We'll talk about that when we get home, sweetheart," you know. John was also the only person I ever knew who actually learned a language from language tapes. And he learned French fluently from going back and forth from Fort Lee, New Jersey to his job in Manhattan. And I always thought that there's at least one person out there, in case you wonder, who learns from language tapes. John Kirk did.
And the reason why he did that, he was afraid that when he went to France, and he did go to France, is that they would know that he was not a Francophile, and that he'd know that he wasn't French, and he wanted to make sure that he spoke French with a French accent.
And he also wore a beret, didn't he?
No. He didn't understand that you got given away by a number of things besides how you opened your mouth. Which is what clothes you wore or whatever. He had, the first time we went to France, he drilled me, and I actually have formally studied French, and I know far more French than he ever did, but he had a better accent. And we would get into three-way conversations in which he would ask the question, the person would answer, I would interpret, he wouldn't understand what the person said. I interpret in English to John, who would then respond in French to because he wouldn't talk to me because my accent, no matter how much I knew, was terrible.
Yeah.
So we got into these crazy kind of situations with the three of us talking. What he didn't understand was that you got given away by your clothes and that kind of thing. So I had been drilled that in public we didn't speak unless we spoke in French. And my French was not that good. So we were on the metro, and it was crowded. We were standing, and a young man came bouncing up to him, and he said, "You are American, no?" And John dropped his jaw, couldn't figure out how he knew he was American. So John responded in French and said, yes, I am. And, well, the man had just come back from Cleveland, Ohio. And so in the course of the conversation, John said, how did you know that I was American? And he said, well, your shoes, and you wear your sunglasses in your pocket of your jacket. So immediately he was marked as an American. No matter how much he didn't speak, didn't, shut me up, whatever, he was a marked man.
In more than one way.